Good evening. My name is Janelle Austin. I am the Executive Director of Rise and Remember. Today we are inviting you to explore the possibilities of reimagining the People's Way for the next season of its purpose. Where do I point this? Or next slide, let's do that. Okay. Rise and Remember exists to conserve stories of resistance to racial injustice and to curate spaces for all people to grieve, pay respect, and be a voice for justice. We assembled a team of meaningful organizations to walk on this important journey with us. You will get to hear from Angela Harrelson and Paris Stevens, family of George Floyd, Ward 9's Maggie Hill Kipling and Melissa Amundsen, owners of Twin Cities Art Care, Nyla Bird, a Black art conservator consultant, and Denitric Powers, co-founder of Neo Partners. At George Floyd Square, we are people over property. You will be working with us in our collective identity as neighbors to reimagine the place of the People's Way. So Ms. Angela and Ms. Paris, please begin.
Thank you, Jen. Good evening, everyone. My name is Angela Harrelson. I am George Floyd's auntie, and I'm also the co-chair of Rise and Remember. I want to say this is really emotional for me. It's emotional for me because I see colleagues out here who want to do something really special for the community, and it's also honor my family. So I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for that. But the proposal that we want to do is to have a memorial garden at the People's Way. And one of the reasons why this is so important is because when my nephew was killed here, 38 in Chicago, the community, they created a beautiful living memorial for my nephew and for the community. And what I also realized, they also had created flower gardens that I got a chance to see. And I saw people nurturing those flowers, and they just took so much good care of it. And then I realized this is part of their protest. This is part of their healing. And then the gardens that we're gonna have, they're more than just about flowers and plants. It's about healing, it's about hope, and it represents your story, and it also represents history. Another important point to have that garden is the remembrance of people who were killed by the police. And so they won't feel like their loved ones have been forgotten. Another reason is it's a place of healing. Grief is heavy, and it can be so unbearable. And when you can go to a quiet place, and which I have done multiple times at the memorial, and you have a chance to sit and reflect, and and have some type of peace at that moment, and it's so important for the community, and for most of all people that have lost loved ones. Also, it offers a space for the community. It's a place where the community can come together, create ideas, support one another. It's a circle of healing that we have for one another. And it's also where our pain transforms to a purpose. Another thing that is important, I thought, is the commitment to justice. When you walk I'm imagining now, when you walk in the People's Way and you see this memorial garden, when you walk in there, that's history. The history is speaking for itself. No one can erase what happened because the stories are told. And also I want to leave you with this. Because this ground has already been claimed, 38 in Chicago, it was not by development, but it was by history. It was not by any type of blueprints, but by the people on 38 in Chicago who fought hard, who stood and made a difference. And what I want to say else, that if this is preserved right, it can remain a living, breathing testament to the resilience, the justice, and the remembrance for generations to come. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about this over here. Is Paris up there? Okay, this is Paris. She's George Floyd's cousin, and she has a message for you as well. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Paris Stevens. I am the first cousin of George Floyd and co-chair of Rise and Remember. I currently reside in Huntersville, North Carolina, and frequently visit Minneapolis. The first time I visited the square, I had mixed emotions, sadness and heartache. But after speaking with community and speaking with visitors, the overwhelming feeling I had was hope. When I think about the why as a memorial garden in this space and its importance, I think of hope. Hope is a firm belief that change is possible and that our actions matter and make a difference. The Memorial Garden will be a place for healing and reflection, opportunity and optimism, because there will be meeting places where people will meet with visitors and community members and have a sense of opportunities that can rise. The Memorial Garden will also be a place of peace and will provide education. The garden is birthed from a tragedy that resonated with people all around the world. This Memorial Garden will be historical for generations to come. Children will learn the history of what took place on May 25th. And with this garden, we will remember stolen lives. This Memorial Garden will be a place where our stories will be continued to told in our own ways, in our own words, and we're controlling the narrative. When people visit this Memorial Garden, we are equal in this moment. In that very moment, we are all equal. And Memorial Garden is important to me because it fosters unity, community, offers a place to grieve, a way to show importance of a loss, and allows for the legacy of loved ones to continue in a tangible and in a serene environment. In the upcoming minutes, you will get a sense of what our Memorial Garden that we're proposing will encompass and a vision of what it will look like. Thank you.
Hi. Melissa and I are the conservators from Twin Cities Art Care, and we first began assisting Janelle with the preservation of offerings from the memorial as neighbors of the square in 2020. This work was transformative for us as professional art conservators as we worked to serve the community members preserving their own history in real time. Traditionally, art conservation has been concerned with the physical aspects of a material object, whether historical, archaeological, or artistic. Our role in this project will certainly involve some of this, but we are also here discussing a vision of creating something new. So how does art preservation work into this process? We'll look at how the People's Way has evolved over the last 4.5 years and try to understand what makes the People's Way, both physical and less tangible characteristics. Next slide, please. The People's Way, originally the Speedway gas station at a busy intersection, was there during the murder of George Floyd. It was there as people gathered to march, to protest, to come together to imagine a new way forward. Next slide, please. It oversaw mutual aid and neighborhood meetings and the community that sprung up to create a site of protest, a site of mourning, a site of hope, a site of outpourings of emotions in many forms, including a lot of art. Can you, next slide, please? And the next slide, sorry. And a site of celebration. Next slide, please. People flocked to the square for the reading of the Chauvin verdict and celebrated as a community member changed the lettering on the People's Way marquee to reflect the verdict. The inscription on the canopy, where there's people, there's power, as well as the sign altered to read People's Way, are iconic artifacts of the movement for justice. The art created at and for the site, the People's Closet, the meeting space, are all essential to its meaning and its importance to the community. And yet, the People's Way has also constantly changed over the last 4 years. Next slide, please. And continues to change. Next slide, please. So we hope to work with community to steward it to its next incarnation and preserve not only the most important physical aspects of the People's Way, but also those intrinsic non-physical elements. Next slide, please. Lastly, I want to acknowledge that though Melissa and I bring training as art conservators, the leadership and preservation that Janelle has brought to caring for the offerings from the square has not only changed us, but also the entire field of art conservation and historic preservation. This is Janelle giving a keynote talk at an art conservation meeting in 2023 at the Library of Congress. Other speakers were the Librarian of Congress and a number of other notables, but she was the keynote. And also the George Floyd Square community members who were able to attend. Melissa and I feel honored to have been asked to be a part of this project, and we know that if Rise and Remember is chosen to steward the People's Way, it will be in good hands with Janelle facilitating its evolution. And next we have Nyla Bird. Hi, Nyla.
Hello everyone, my name is Nyla Bird and I am a Black arts conservator and will be consulting on this project if we're selected. And I've put some information on my experience with George Floyd Square and how I became involved with the square on the slide. But what I really want to discuss today and speak about is the importance of community and preservation working together, because so often these two things are siloed, right? There's things happening in community and then there's this preservation and conservation expertise that's often only kept in high-funded institutions and high-funded educational places and all of this stuff. And what this project will mean is a collaboration between both of those things. We have the conservation and preservation expertise that is sitting here willing to work with and take guide from community, and that happens so seldom. And so this will really be a model for how this works and a leading example for how more things like this can happen in the future, hopefully not born out of tragedy, of course, but really to drive home the importance of sustained community collaboration, right? Too often these things happen maybe in a one-off project when a cultural heritage institution finally decided they wanted to do something about this, but that's not what this is at all. And so that's why this is really important to me personally and just important to the field of preservation, honestly, as a whole. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Denitra Powers, I only have a minute left, but this isn't about me. Why is NAO working with Rise and Remember? First and foremost, because we believe in the leadership of Janelle, and we believe in the vision that she's carrying, that vision being the family's vision, but also the community around 38th and Chicago. NAO Partners, we are a commercial real estate consulting, urban planning, and community engagement firm. We led the first phase of engagement here at George Floyd Square as a part of the consultant team. To be honest, I didn't feel like our work was finished, before they went on to phase 2. But there's a reason that Janelle reached out to us. It is because, we have two values that we work with. People first, people over projects, people over the process, as well as applied empathy. So having a deep understanding of the end user's needs. that's what we do our work by. And I was surprised when Janelle reached out to us and asking us to be a part of the team, because I just had a lot of angst, I guess, not having finished the project. But I sat, I listened to Janelle, and I feel like our values aligned. We had our company retreat today. Today was our first day, and alignment, belief, and faith were some of the key words that came out of my team's work and reflection. Over the last couple of years, in the work that we've been doing. And so, to me, this is a sign that our work may not be finished, and so we're here to support Janelle throughout this process.
All right. We have listened to many neighbors, and everyone wants something different. So while we are still on our collective journey toward healing, we want People's Way to be available to evolve with us. A memorial garden presents the opportunity for us to preserve your stories, continue the fight for racial justice, and cultivate a place where healing can be nurtured on the stolen Dakota land where art and justice converge. Next slide. We present to you a potential reimagination of the People's Way. If selected, we plan to work with neighbors to create the actual design. Today, we'll explore this rendering. Next slide. Imagine a wall of names for stolen lives accompanied by a digital exhibition of their stories told by relatives. Surrounded by grass, gardens, and maybe even a water feature, you stand in a serene environment to reflect on our collective work toward justice. Next slide. What if we cut the facade of the People's Way, restore it, and reattach it to a smaller structure? The building could double as storage unit on the lower level and an exhibition of protest art on the upper level. What if we had a climate-controlled greenhouse and upgraded the People's Closet, gas station canopy, marquee, and fist bus shelter? What if we had self-cleaning public restrooms and a rooftop DJ booth? What if there were an engraved Black Power fist on the ground that is backlit so as planes fly over GFS, people know we still stand for justice? Next slide. Imagine a visitor could order tea at Pichota Coffee, sit on a bench in the garden, and enjoy the sounds of urban serenity with a friend. Can you see it? Next slide. And next slide. And next slide. Our concept is rooted in preservation, the public experience, customized provisions, and productive contributions. The preservation of names through a physical and digital memorial will honor families and allow us to remember hundreds of more names of stolen lives. As a public memorial garden, people will be able to reconnect with each other and the land. Provisions like self-cleaning public restrooms, drinking fountains, an elevator, and a DJ booth are details that keep our community, our healing journey, and our protests accessible. And we can be productive by enhancing the economic relief impact through the People's Closet, creation of new jobs, and increase of visitors to patron local businesses. How much will this cost? Next slide. We estimate our fundraising goal to be $2.5 million to cover all expenses. We also estimate that the project will take up to 2 years, depending on the expediency of the processes. The majority of our funds will be raised through foundations, individual gifts, and sponsorships. We would intensify fundraising efforts upon approval of our project by you, our neighbors, and subsequently the City of Minneapolis. We would be honored and humbled to be chosen as neighbors to reimagine the People's Way with you. Thank you for listening. Next slide.
So if you have questions, please stand up or raise your hand.
Yeah, so how much time we got, Ann?
You have
Yeah.
5 minutes.
So if we can keep our questions very brief, right? And somebody who hasn't spoke, want to give them a chance with these 5 minutes? All the way over there?
Can you switch to the last slide, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Quick question. Why do you think that trying to put a conservative proposal compared to a giant building is better?
Absolutely, because there's so much diversity in our community, and there's so much healing work that is still happening, and conversations that still need to be had. By building a memorial garden, we, one, allow the land to rest, and two, we give ourselves an opportunity to continue to build and grow as a community. And if later in the future we feel that there's more that can be added to it, we have that opportunity. If we build right now in full, then it's a lot less likely that we can change and shift and pivot. So a memorial garden gives us the flexibility, and honestly, in our work of memorial caretaking, one of the biggest asks we get from families is, can you add the name of my loved one? And that is hard to hear, and we need a place to do that.
Hello. I was wondering who will be doing the gardening. Will you involve young people in building the garden? And in terms of the restoration, has a lot of thought been given to what will happen to the soil that the garden will be developed in?
Absolutely. So those are all questions that we would engage during the community engagement process. We do want to be able to hire groundskeepers, so that could also be an opportunity to hire youth as groundskeepers or adults as groundskeepers. Our organization, Rise and Remember, we do have cultural heritage preservation internships for youth every summer, and so involving youth in this work of cultural heritage preservation is a core part of what we do. And so the second question about the soil, that's something that I think that we would have to answer later once we have more information about the soil and we can discuss that as a community. Oh yeah, water features are definitely possible. So this is, what we've shown you is just a mock rendering. And so we would do a community engagement process that would allow us to actually come up with what we decide collectively together what we want this garden to be.
Yeah. So my question is.
Hi, Tommy.
How you doing? When you think about building something like this, do you think about the target audience, right? You live in a historical black neighborhood that's full of black excellence. I think our neighborhood has enough cemeteries, with black bodies in them. It doesn't, what I'm trying to say, it doesn't bring life to a community that's still grieving and healing, is to keep bringing more people with their energy to our community. Because, to be honest, our community hasn't benefited from it, George Floyd dying. A lot of black bodies have been locked up now. A lot of black bodies have been stolen after George Floyd. So something that's not going to create more employment, black businesses, generational wealth, then I think this is just another, putting a Band-Aid on a solution that our problem really need to be fixed, in my opinion.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I think that was more of a statement, right? So where are we at a time? I just want to be respectful of the space. We good?
Thank you, friends.